Welcome, everyone, to It Tastes Different Gaming Podcast, the podcast with four different flavors coming from four different gamers. I am your host, Patrick Smith, and I want to welcome my co hosts, Nick Irwin, Shane Eisterhold, and Russell Rowe.
Hey, Patrick, where can they find us?
Well, the first place you should check out is our website at ittastesdifferent.com. This is the place where you can subscribe to all of our streams and connect to all of our social media sites. You can also find us on Facebook at It Tastes Different. We're also on Instagram at It Tastes Different PC. And then last but not least is Twitter, where you can find us at It Tastes Diff. What's on the menu for today? We chow down on the clam chowder with Call of the Sea. Call of the Sea is an adventure video game basically developed by Out of the Blue and published by Raw Fury. It's basically out on Microsoft Windows, Xbox One, Xbox Series S. Came out on December 8th, 2020. It's an adventure puzzle solving game, single player, first person perspective. It's set in the 1930s, and you play as Nora. So we'll kind of go round table on this, and let's see what everybody thought of this game. How about let's have Shane start this one off for us. Shane, what'd you think of this game?
Oh, sorry, I was sleeping. What? That game sucks. It is so boring. I tried my best to stay awake, but that literally is probably the most sleepiest game I can remember ever playing. To be honest, I was so bored. the very beginning of the game, you start off in your cabin on the boat, and as soon as the dialogue started, the woman spoke her lines. It was like, oh my God, this is going to be rough. So I looked around the room, I listened to more of her dialogue, and boom, I'm dozing off. So I do what I got to do in the room. I go to the next portion of it, and you hit your little cut scene where you're getting to the island. And I couldn't even make it to the island without dozing off. Get to the island, it was nothing but a snore. I could not get myself to enjoy this game. It was so sleepy. The graphics were fine. Nothing to be, ooh and ah about. The controls were awful, I thought, in my opinion, but they're kind of typical though for that type of puzzle game. I don't know, man. That game is just, in my opinion, I hated that game. It was so tiresome. The voice acting was fine to a point, I guess. The puzzles that I don't know. I don't think the puzzles were that inventive that I got through, but I couldn't finish the game at all because that game just made me want to go to sleep. I got through chapter 2 and that was it. And there's 6 chapters, I believe. So that's how far I could push myself through it. I just couldn't do it no more. I could not freaking stay awake. It was rough. I mean, it was real rough. Even the wife was laughing at me. All right, so that's how bad I thought it was. What about you, Nick? What'd you think?
I love this game. I thought it was really good. The pace and I thought the voice acting was really good. I thought the lady that did Nora did really good voice acting. I thought the puzzles were a lot of fun. I was engaged. I played it on PC. Because you can get through. It was free in Game Pass, and it's also you can play it on PC. It's not cross save, so you can't play the saves across PC and Xbox. But I downloaded it on my PC through the Game Pass and played it on there. So I did play it a little bit on the Xbox, and I would agree, Shane. The controls are a little slow on Xbox. But they're not too bad. I think PC is really the way to play this game if you're going to play it. But I don't think you're going to have a problem on Xbox. So really, it's just where you prefer to play. The puzzles are. I mean, some of the puzzles get really, they get really complicated. Where you've really got to read. The nice thing is Nora, when you look at certain things and in the areas and stuff like that, she will write them down in the notebook, which is really nice. So that kind of helps you out with the puzzles. So you want to make sure you search the entire area and you kind of look at everything that she can look at, because she will write certain things down that are significant for the puzzle. And that goes, and you have a journal, which that goes into the log section, I believe. or the notes section, one of the two, I can't remember, where she writes down the puzzle portions of it, and then there's the notes section where she writes down like a journal portion, which is kind of like what the story is going on and stuff like that, and story events. Of course, you can get the story through just the narrative and things that you find and things that she says when you pick certain things up. But of course, you can also read the notes or the log. Again, I can't remember which tab is which, but in the journal to kind of figure out a little more context into the story. But yeah, I mean, generally, the game is not very long. It's only 6 chapters. It won't take long to get through them. The only time it would take you long to get through these chapters and through the puzzles and stuff is really just getting through the puzzles, right? The puzzles is what's going to stop you from progressing to the next chapter quickly, because some of the puzzles can be pretty in depth where you really got to think about what you need to do to solve them. They're not super difficult, but they're not also super easy, I didn't think. I found some puzzles to be really easy, and I found some puzzles to be really difficult. So, did I have to use a guide for some of the puzzles? Yes. And even the guide wasn't really clear on how to solve the puzzle. So it was really just kind of me using the guide and kind of figuring it out on my own. But I wouldn't use a guide unless I got to the point where I just could not figure it out. And, I was just racking my brain. I didn't want to spend hours sitting here trying to figure out how to do something, a puzzle within the game. So I would pull up a guide just to kind of see, what am I missing? What am I missing here? Something's missing from what I'm doing. And so that's really where I use the guides online. But otherwise, I think this was a great game. It was a really good story. It was a really fun game. It was nice. You did have to think a lot as far as the puzzles go, but beyond the puzzles, it was just roaming around and just kind of looking at things and kind of experiencing the story in the island. And overall, I think this was a fun game to play, and I really enjoyed it. And I really couldn't. I probably beat it within 2 days. I couldn't put it down, and I thought it was a lot of fun. I just wanted to get back into it and get it done because I really enjoyed the gameplay and the puzzles and the story and everything that was going on and the narration and the beautiful scenery. Like Shane said, the graphics aren't like, they're nothing to call home for, but they are really nice. There's definitely some areas of the game that are absolutely beautiful as far as graphically goes. So, and there's some places that are just kind of generic looking, but there are some places in the island and within the story that look really good. So I think overall this is a great game, but I'm sure I'll add more to this as we go on, but let me go ahead and send it over to Russ. Russ, what did you think of Call of the Sea?
I'm not going to quite be as harsh as Shane. I did doze off once while playing the game. But to Nick's point, the voice acting was very good, actually. It could have been much more robotic, much more boring, but that actually is part of what drew me in. And then the graphics were solid. I mean, for a puzzle game of that sort, I don't expect anything much more than that. The puzzles, as I got to about the 3rd or 4th chapter, they did get pretty difficult, and going back and forth is kind of where I struggled, going back to the journal, going back to that. I mean, I don't mind a good puzzle game or a brain teaser, but I also like action, and the story is probably what kept me going as long as I did. Any other time, I probably would have been done after the first chapter. Although the first chapter was pretty simple, just getting through that first bridge was quite basic, was quite normal for a puzzle game. But overall, if you love puzzle games, if you love stories, if you are an avid reader, if you love kind of choose your own adventure or something like that, this might be something for you. For me, it's not that I hate the game. I dislike puzzle games. I want a nice balance of puzzle and action. Kind of like Immortals, like there was some puzzle and there's some action within that to kind of break up some of that. The only difference is with this game, the puzzle was to figure out the story, Whereas in a game like Immortals, the puzzle is just to get through the dungeon or something like that. But overall, just not my game. As we have 4 different flavors, this is not my flavor. This is not my pistachio ice cream. So I just really don't like that one. But in any case, I'm just gonna throw it to Patrick and see what he has to say about it, because I really don't have much more to say other than meh.
I loved the game. I'm in the same boat as Nick. I will admit that the boat scene was pretty slow, but it was just like an introduction into like how to move, how to look around, how to interact with things, and how to use the journal, because the journal basically told you how to open the suitcase, gave you the codes, and all kinds of stuff like that. I enjoy a good puzzle game, and especially a good puzzle game that's got a good story. And this is like an homage to Lovecraft. What this game is. This is basically a Lovecraftian style story in a video game. It's very. I thought it was pretty well written. Once you got on the island, things were moved at the pace that you could do. I would say some puzzles were harder than others, and those were the fun ones. I will say that I ran into one puzzle that didn't really make any sense. Even after I had to use an online guide to solve it, it still didn't make sense to me. I'm like, how did you derive this from this? But I picked it up and didn't put it down until it was done. So I played through the entire thing in one sitting. That's how much I enjoyed it. I got to the point where I'm like, oh, it's time to go do dinner. Go fix dinner and stuff. And I'm like, okay. So I put it down, went in there to make dinner. I was going to get off for the night, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to finish this out. And I just went and finished it up. Ran through it and finished up. Like Nick said, it's only 6 chapters. If you can solve all the puzzles pretty quickly, it's a 6 to 7 hour game. If you take a little bit longer, it's probably more like an 8 to 9 hour game. But I really enjoyed it. The transitions from land to sea, where you get to do some underwater stuff, was pretty cool in my opinion. Those levels were designed very well in my opinion, a little bit more so than the on land stuff. But the puzzles were pretty good, and that's what drove me on this one. And the story, obviously, the Lovecraft style story is always kind of an interesting twist when they put these in games. Every chapter has a major puzzle and then some minor puzzles and stuff like that. As you get closer to the end of the game, the puzzles get I wouldn't say harder, but they do get more. You seem to pick up more puzzles as you progress past the halfway point of the game. It went from having like one major puzzle and a couple of minor puzzles to be like 3 major puzzles per chapter. So it's hard to talk about this game without spoiling anything, because we don't want to do that. So basically you're trapped on you're not trapped, but you're dropped off on an island, and you gotta discover the mysteries. So I can't say enough good things about this one, because especially being a Game Pass game, you can't go wrong there. It was definitely worth the $15 that I paid for Game Pass for just this one game already this month. So, and I'm sure there'll be other games. The game also has a choice at the end, so you get to pick how the story ends up, depending on what your thoughts are in the game. So, interesting story, I have to say. A little bit of it seemed like you were going to see you kind of knew what was going to happen a little bit as you played through and got to the halfway point. You kind of knew what was happening. So, but I will say the midpoint puzzle has to be one of the coolest ones with the giant organ.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to say, Patrick, because you brought it up, and I was thinking the same thing. There was one puzzle, and it was probably the same one that you brought up, where even through the guide, I don't know how they I looked at the guide, like exactly like you said. I looked at the guide, solved it, and I said at the end, I don't understand how you got that.
Was it the puzzle inside the frog's head?
Inside the
giant frog's head, where you had to put the 4 paintings in order?
4 paintings in order. I'm trying to think of which one that one was.
That was the one towards the end where you took the elevator up into the giant room, and it was inside the frog's head, basically a giant stone frog's head.
Yeah, yes, that was exactly it. Because I looked at the guide, and I did it with the guide, and I was like, I don't understand how you got that.
Right.
Even looking at it afterwards, I'm like, that still doesn't make any sense.
You have to put the painting. You have to basically put the cave drawing paintings in order, and there's 4 of them, and it ends up being, when you solve it, it's not an order. There is no order. You basically are numbering them 1 through 4. But let's just put it this way: not all the numbers are used, and you're like, okay, this doesn't make sense. I don't get how you got it.
The orientation and where you put the triangle, because there's 4 quadrants. None of that made any sense to me. After I solved it with the guide, I was like, this still doesn't make any sense to me. I don't understand how they got that.
Right. It's supposed to be a derivative of how many pictoglyphs make the word, and then it's supposed to be put these in order of storytelling. So this is like what starts the chain reaction, and then this is what it ages into, and this is what it comes into, and this is the final transformation. And you're like, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. No, that didn't work, dude. I think I spent probably 15 minutes on that puzzle before I was like, this doesn't make any sense to me, and I pulled up a guide.
Yeah, I was saying. Even after the guide, I was like, I did it and with a guide because I looked up a few guides and they kind of
They kept saying put this one in position 1, and you're like, okay,
right. And I'm like,
position
okay,
1.
I put it in, and I'm like, it still didn't open. What the heck? And so I just like messed around with it, and the door finally opened. I'm like, that puzzle made 0 sense to me.
Yeah, that was that was the one that got me into the
Yeah. Yeah, that was totally over my head because I'm like, I don't understand how you got that.
Right. But I will say the puzzles are definitely in this game. They're great. Lots of like just wandering around, because she takes sketches like Nick said and puts it in a note section of her journal, and then she writes every chapter or every little like detail in the actual other part of the journal. So the notes is where she draws like the sketches and stuff like that. So that's definitely pretty cool and pretty fun. There's lots of interesting puzzles, there's lots of things you can miss too. There's like dialogues that you don't have to actually do that help you progress the story, like give you achievements and stuff like that. So definitely a good short game. I found it was very compelling story, very interesting story. And then the end of it, because it basically made you invested in the two characters. So you had a hard choice to make at the end of the game.
I fell asleep again with that one.
Did you? So you beat the game, Shane?
No, I couldn't get through chapter 2. It's so boring. And I love puzzle games. I used to love Myst and what was the one you played in the Wildfire in the Mountains? That came out a couple years back. Firewatch. Love Firewatch.
Firewatch is a walking simulator. I wouldn't even call that a puzzle game.
Yeah. I love those games, but man, there was nothing that I could do to stay awake through that thing because it was just
this
to
game
me it
is
was
like
just
reminiscent.
There's no Myst about it.
Yeah, I mean, like the puzzles and the way that you go around. I mean, it's like reminiscent of Myst. I mean, it's like this. It's not the same, but
yeah, it's not the same graphics or detail. This is more animated style graphics.
Right.
But I mean, it was definitely like a Lovecraft story with some pretty good puzzles in it.
Yeah, and as soon as you said that, man, I got excited to jump into it because I like that type of stuff, and it was just the dialogue to me was boring. The characters just.
We only got to chapter 2, and I'm sure you probably didn't even get halfway through chapter 2 then.
I got almost.
The actress that did the voice acting.
I got like an hour or so into 2.
Yeah, she did.
No.
She's done a lot of stuff.
Compared to the voice acting that we hear in a lot of games, I mean, I thought this was pretty.
I mean, Sissy Jones, who did the voice,
better than a lot, but
yeah, she does a lot of voiceovers for a lot of games and a lot of other stuff. She does some anime. She does a lot of video games and stuff like that.
I don't know. I don't know what it was, but there was nothing about that game that kept my interest, kept me awake. It was just blah. Not meh, but blah.
Well, I will just tell you this, Shane. You like Firewatch so much. The lady who does the voice in this, Sissy Jones, did Delilah's voice in Firewatch.
Oh, did she? I'm gonna go back and replay it just so I can hear that and compare. But I like those games. It's just there was something about this one that just was not working for me at all, and it really sucks too because I wanted to enjoy it because I haven't played a good puzzle type game in a long while.
Well,
but like I was saying, those puzzles in Immortals: Phoenix Rising, those are fun.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it could be one of those things where you're just not in the mood. I mean. That happens sometimes where you're just not in the mood for a certain game.
And there are certain games you do have to be in the mood to play.
Right.
It may be that we kind of went through a series of games there where, we're reviewing that if it wasn't for Immortals, I mean, I know you guys like Cyberpunk a lot, I know that, but we've had some pretty lengthy kind of games lately, and then this one was kind of that break between it, but then there just wasn't as much action to this one. Maybe that might have affected a little bit. I mean, I don't know. I don't think it's a terrible game, like Patrick was saying. For a subscription-based game, for a game that came straight to Xbox Game Pass. I mean, I definitely say, I got my $3 worth of my $15 month subscription out of it for sure. I mean, whether I liked it or not doesn't matter. But yeah, I mean, like, keep throwing games out there that we can review, that we can have this kind of like banter back and forth about it, because it just makes our lives easier, really. I mean, that way we're not dropping $60 every week or every 2 weeks on games that turn out like, the dildo-ridden Cyberpunk. But it is it is what it is. But it was a solid game. It just I did unfortunately lose a little interest in it. But probably I think I finished chapter 3. I can't remember now, but it was tough to get through that far for me.
I think like Russ and from myself with Immortal, I think like Russ in this sense is, he's giving his thumbs up to the game. It wasn't for him, but for him, it's not like don't play it. I think it's more, for you, Russ, I think it's more like you should definitely play this game. I think it's good. It just wasn't for me.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. I mean, that is exactly how I feel. I don't have a bad thing to say about the game, because the game was functional. It worked for its purpose, and the story was pretty interesting initially. I mean, I just couldn't push myself through it. It's kind of the same thing like you were enjoying the banter with the gods. I was enjoying how she was describing and talking about the story. This voice actress is a step above a few that we've heard lately. So, I could listen to her talk, all day. Maybe that's what put me to sleep. Maybe her voice is just so calming that I had to take a nap. Who knows?
I don't know. I had to find out what happened to the expedition. I was like, come on, what happened to them? Where they at? Are we going to find them? Where'd they all go?
And like you said,
I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but the guy just running away from her because she was boring.
No, you got to play to the end, man. You got to play to the end and figure out what happened. And one thing I'm going to say about the end too is, there are, like Pat said, there are two, not to spoil anything or anything like that. There are two decisions at the end, like Pat said. The nice thing about it is you can replay the last chapter and choose the other ending, so you can see both. And once you figured out the puzzle for chapter 6, which you're going to do if you play the game, it's it's like no time at all to go through chapter 6 again, redo the puzzle, and complete the game.
So you can redo any chapter you want after you beat it.
Exactly. And if you redo chapter 6 again and beat it again, you can choose the other option and then see what that comes out to be. So it's not that
watch the credits to see what happens, because I mean basically it almost seems like nothing really happens, but they put it to where you have to watch the credits to understand what happens.
Right, and the credits aren't that long.
No,
either.
They're not.
So, but there are a lot of the stuff to find. Like Patrick said, there's a lot of journal entries. There's murals to find throughout that gives you achievements as well. And as well as there's every chapter has a secret object that you need to find for an achievement. So, those are kind of fun to find. The secret objects are not too difficult to find, but
they're not. I ran into all of them but one playing the game.
Same here. I think it was on chapter 4 or 3. I can't remember which one.
I think 4 is the one I missed.
I think 4 is the one I missed too. But I went back and I got it. I just played chapter 4 again and found the secret object and got the achievement for it. But most of the time you'll run across them, especially if you take your time to examine the island and examine the location you're in and look at all the stuff around. You're more likely going to come across the secret object, especially the murals as well. You're going to come across those. Those are pretty. those are pretty. They pretty much stand out. So you're going to see one of those, and every mural that you see that you can examine it. So, and those are some easy achievements to get just looking at those.
Yep. Yeah. It's definitely good. And I don't know. I don't know what you guys ran into, because as soon as I got on the island and started looking around. as soon as I got off the boat, onto the island, I was like, okay, cool. What's over here? What's over there? What's this way? What's this? What's that? What's there? Oh, cool. I ran by this and I missed it. Let me go back over there and look at that because the journal basically said, oh, there's something hidden under the rock. And I'm like, how did I miss that? I'm like, oh, I didn't go back far enough, and stuff like that. So it's definitely one of those. It's a puzzle game. If you like puzzle games and you like a non-horror based Lovecraft story, this is a game for you, because it's definitely, in my opinion, I can't believe Shane, who liked Firewatch, didn't like this game because, in my opinion, they're one and the same. So Firewatch and Myst and Soma, stuff like that. This is kind of similar to that type of stuff, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's what I was hoping for, but there was nothing grabbing my attention. And maybe Russ is right. Maybe just the timing of this one for us was just, just wasn't the right time. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I liked the nice break. It was a nice break from all the long games that we've been playing and all the really in-depth games that we've been playing. It was kind of nice to play a game that really didn't take a whole lot of your attention and time.
Yeah, I would say that was a good bonus. Yeah, I wrapped this up in one full day playthrough. I played this on a Sunday and played it all the way through because, in all honesty, I wasn't looking forward to it. I saw the trailers and the previews because, this is the one everybody said they wanted to play, and I'm like, oh man, this isn't going to be good. And so what it did allow me, though, is when I did play it, I couldn't put it down, and then I was able to wrap it up in one playthrough so that I can go back and try to finish up because I've been playing Immortals still. I've already started the ascension up the mountain, and I was like, okay, I want to finish this, So it afforded me that to get a little bit further in that game too. So it's definitely, I like sometimes we have these smaller game breaks, especially like this one. Beat it in 6. I think I put 7 hours into it. I think I beat it in 7 hours, maybe 8. But it was definitely one of those games. I was like, oh, cool, I can do this game in a single playthrough. And honestly, it wasn't even like I pushed myself through it. It drugged me through it because, like I said, I was going to get off for the evening, and I just sitting upstairs trying to find something to watch on TV, and I was like, no, I'm going back and finish this up. So I had to finish it. I had to know what happened to the crew, the expedition.
Well, I'm glad you guys liked it. I really am, because I hated not liking it as much as it. And it's really not that I hated it or disliked it. It's just there was nothing about the game that grabbed me. There was nothing about it that made me, like you said, dragged me through it. I was pushing just to get as far as I did, and and that sucks because you guys enjoyed it that much, and I want to be able to enjoy it that much. I just can't.
Well, what sucked was I thought I was going to be the only one. Because Patrick hadn't said anything yet, and I was like, oh my gosh. You and Russ were like, it's boring. And I'm like, oh man, I'm going to be the only one on this review that likes this game.
Yeah, they made me not want to even play it more. So I was pushing it off to the last minute, and I was like, oh, I need to
gotta do it.
Get on this one. This one's great. So definitely, yeah. I mean, I liked it, and I it's worth a playthrough if you like a puzzle. If you are a fan, in my opinion, of Firewatch, Myst, Soma, this game is like up your alley. It's not the sci-fi style of like Soma or Myst. It's more fantasy style. So, but it's fantasy set in like a realistic world, but it's fantasy. And if you play the game, you'll know why I'm saying this. It's basically set in the 1930s, but it has a fantasy aspect to it.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I mean, for my last remarks, I think this game is definitely worth a playthrough, especially if you have Game Pass. If you have Game Pass and you like games like Patrick said, you like Soma, you like Myst, like Firewatch, you like all those types of kind of walking simulator puzzle games, this is definitely going to be a game that I think you'll enjoy. I enjoyed it. Patrick enjoyed it. And I think anyone that likes those types of games will probably enjoy this one as well. It's a good game, especially if you have Game Pass. Why not install it and try it out? So,
I would agree.
For my last words, if you got Game Pass, it's definitely worth giving a try. Don't let my narcolepsy with the game, affect you from trying it out and most likely enjoying it more than I did.
Well, we just know that Grandpa doesn't like to read, so that's what we'll just chalk this up to.
I mean, if anything,
If I'm Grandpa, I should love to read, and I
No.
do love to read.
Grandpa only likes to read the newspaper.
No. I only like to read the obituaries. I outlived that bastard.
Russ, you got any closing remarks on this one?
yeah, if anything, number one, you can get some reward points and some Game Pass credit and stuff like that if you, number one, download it from your phone. So if you download it from your phone, you get a little extra credit for that. You play through the first chapter. Anybody can get through that first chapter. It's not that difficult of a puzzle, that first chapter. You get a achievement for that. You get achievement for the prologue. So there you go. There's 2 achievements in your week. I mean, if anything, it's worth it. Who knows? You might get hooked on it after that first chapter, but definitely not a terrible game. Not one that I'm going to go back and finish or anything like that. I'll wait till we get offline and I'll be like, hey guys, what'd y'all do? And I'll find out how it ended. So, but definitely give it a shot. And that's really all I have to say. It's worth the shot.
Awesome. Well, I mean, I think that pretty much closes it out for us. We're kind of a torn group. Me and Nick loved it. Shane disliked it. And Russ is kind of sitting on the fence with it. He couldn't get through much further than he got, but he didn't hate it. So, we got 1 hate, 1 on the fence, and 2 who really enjoyed it. So
I wouldn't say hate. I just wouldn't say liked.
Grandpa used it for a night aid. So it was basically like his what do they call the old?
He played it while he went to sleep.
Yeah.
It was my NyQuil.
He has his NyQuil.
He turned it on at night.
He was like, ran out of NyQuil, honey. I'll look that of the
Just
sea game.
Just put on Call of the Sea.
Yeah. So, I think that's why there's 4 of us. Everybody likes something a little different. And this is one of the ones that, we are split pretty rough on this one. It wasn't a unanimous like or a unanimous dislike or a unanimous sit on the fence type thing. So, well, anybody else got anything extra they want to add on this one before we close the book on Call of the Sea?
No, I'm good with it.
All right. Well, we appreciate everybody listening to this episode, and we hope to catch you on the next one.